Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Chrono here, and welcome back to the channel. So today, I want to talk with you guys about my gearing plan, I guess you could call it, and I plan to move forward with the new stuff that is on the horizon for NGS. But before we jump to that, if you're new here, as always, my name is Chrono. I primarily cover PSO2 content. Would much appreciate a subscribe as we work our way towards that 10K mark, hopefully, by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. So the gearing plan is actually pretty straightforward and pretty simple. For those who aren't aware of where I'm at or my gear goals that I'd reached, we basically got our INEA armor fully kitted out. We're 41%, 41.1, not across the board, but 41.1 basically. And this is what we're rocking. We've got Grand Gladia, Mega Trial, Lux Half, Melra Doable, Naughty Def Melra, Glen Gigas Maste, and Grand Dread Keeper 2. So the goal here, and what we're probably going to be moving into, is actually possibly all statting. That would require a replacement of Anades, and it doesn't require a replacement of Melra Doable. Now, what we'll likely do is we'll likely transition this back into High L Domina. Not High L, I'm sorry, High Kavar Domina, since it is all stat. I don't believe we have another choice for all stat 3.5% potency. That's in the long term primarily. But we are going to be moving towards that because our next weapon we'll be using will be the new 11 star at some point. Now, we don't know for certain. This is something that a lot of people have been like kind of talking about, or have been, I don't want to say, providing misinformation about per se, just because I don't know about what the weapon is going to be. So these people could be correct. However, we haven't officially been told what the strength is of the new weapon until it releases, right? So it was a real big thing when Eridim came out. Everyone's like, they mentioned very immediately that, hey, it's not going to be stronger than your Wingard. And everyone was like, okay, cool. Well, it'll probably be, close to on par with Wingard or very, very close. It's actually pretty far away from the Wingard. The Wingard has actually got a pretty substantial amount of damage over an Eridim, not to the point that, using an Eridim is useless, but it wasn't nearly as close as what most people thought it was going to be, which is why I usually save my judgment of a weapon until it actually releases. So this new weapon, we know it's an 11 star. We know it's going to be getting stronger in October. However, we don't know where its strength is, and they didn't specifically tell us it was going to be weaker. Normally, if it's going to be a weaker choice, or if it's going to be something that's a bit off or different, they'll normally tell us. So there's a good chance that the next weapon that releases either is going to be on par with our Wingard or a tiny bit stronger. You'll probably find situations where, unless you have a high fix on the new weapon, like you have on your old weapons, let's say, for example, you're someone who pushed your Wingard up to Fatale 4, Fatale 5, you'll probably find that your Wingard will still end up being stronger than the new weapon. And that's only at lower fixes. My guess is that this weapon is going to be on par or slightly behind our Wingard. I don't think it's going to be just outright stronger. It could be, it very well could be. They could end up, making a stronger weapon overall, but even if it is stronger, I don't think it's going to be by that much where it matters all that much overall. So we'll be transitioning to the new weapon eventually, but that's kind of our goal overall. I know a lot of people have been looking at the new armors and like, oh, well, it's not good, or it is good. We made an entire video talking about the actual power of them. And the one thing to keep in mind is the new armors are only 0.5% potency stronger than the old ones. This is a pretty big difference from the previous set, where our older armors, the Octos versus the Aeneas, were a full 1% difference. It actually made a pretty big difference overall in the gearing process, where I could just get a hold of a capsule and all LC augments and end up being almost stronger than what I had previously. Like, my Octo armors were decently augmented. They weren't best in slot immediately, but they were fairly decently augmented. This was before, we had all the Grands and Luxes and things like that. So the difference in LC versus, our regular augments weren't nearly as large. But if you took our LC augments and our regular augments, and then you compare the two of them based on the armor that I basically had almost equal power, if not a slight bit more, with the newer augments with LC stuff. So jumping to those augments were actually very, very beneficial and very useful for me at the time. Right now, with a 0.5 difference and, the fact that we don't have a ton of augment transfer passes at the moment. So if we go into here, if I do, transfer. Yeah, as you can see, I don't have a ton of augment transfer vouchers at the moment, only 150. I haven't been grinding as many as I could. I definitely think I've got some more sitting in titles that I plan to get a hold of. Let's go ahead and go here. You guys can kind of see a little bit of the process. It's on quests. Yep, there we go. I'm literally only on 2 of Nameless City Exploration, meaning I have the 25, and I believe is it 25, 50, and 75 maybe? Yeah, we have quite a few to get here in Nameless. So when the Nameless update comes out, we will be going ahead and going pretty hard on Nameless. So I have been collecting vouchers. I just haven't gotten all the vouchers I could have gotten from Nameless specifically because I just wasn't farming a whole lot of enemies there. So we will get a lot of vouchers. I foresee there being a situation where we end up with like 200 overall, which is only enough for 2 pieces of gear. That'll get us a weapon and a unit. And the reason why I'm prioritizing the weapon is I feel like if the weapon is stronger, which I feel like it has a better chance of being, it's more of my priority than my units. The units are only a 0.5% difference. And to kind of get an idea here, when I swapped over from, let's see, where is it? From High Kavar Domina to Melra Doable, I saw a change of 284% potency to 286. So it is 2% difference for swapping over 0.5. Yes. However, it wasn't a massive difference. You're looking like in armor, like where you're re-rolling your armor and ending up with almost the same power you had beforehand with all LC augments. This isn't really the same situation. I would likely see my my potency jump up to maybe 2.88, or I'm sorry, 288, or maybe 291 possibly, if I would have kept the armor. But if I were to swap over, I would likely want to swap this, or no, I'm sorry, swap this back to High Kavar because I'd be losing out on a lot of PP. Now, when the newer armors get their upgrades, that's something that we can go into, and we can take a look at how much power that's going to be able to provide us with the utility stats that are going to be provided with them. However, it's something that I don't really need to rush into right this moment. I know a lot of people are like really concerned there are not enough augment transfer passes. This is a very similar process or every similar problem we had back when Master Cubes first came out. A lot of people were just like, there just aren't enough Master Cubes. We can't get enough cubes, and they released the fragments. Talk about how there weren't enough fragments, and now we're getting fragments and cubes every event that pops up. There's a weekly exchange for them, like they show up more often. It's a bit of artificial time gating, which is a little bit annoying, but the thing to keep in mind is that we really don't need to jump over to these gear over to this gear immediately for most of us. A lot of people who did need this gear, who were kind of further behind, don't need the transfer passes. It's better for them to build their gear from scratch. For example, if you watched Karo set up his armor, I know he went through quite a bit. He was talking about it on stream and was thinking about transfer passing, and I was looking at his gear and we were like, you know what? Based on what you have, man, there's no reason for you to use a transfer pass. Like literally none. He was using old capsules. He was using, you know, some of the lower tier augments where you'd have to replace them anyway, and it just didn't make any sense. And if you're caught up on gear and you're super high geared, then the difference between the current units and, you know, the ones we have right now are very, very, very small, meaning that you don't have to rush over to them. Now, there is a point to be made for the sooner you get to them, the longer you actually have, like the longer their shelf life is. But I feel like these units are going to have a pretty solid shelf life. Like RNA units were useful for a very long time. I could have gotten into these units even sooner had I gone for the orange ones that were available, but I did wait a little while and went for these blue ones thinking they were going to have higher PP than, you know, the following subsequent ones. I was wrong about that. That's on me. Totally fine. But we are in a different set of a gearing situation. We're in a new era of gearing. They are purposely making sure, they're telling us that, hey, look, this gear is going to be useful. Go ahead and augment it. Go ahead and gear up, because you will be able to upgrade this in the future patch. And that's in October. I don't foresee there being a situation where, I mean, we're in August. That's 2 months away from the new system that's going to be added. That system being added 2 months from now, I don't foresee there being a situation where we don't have, you know, the usefulness of that gear extend 4 to 6 months from that time frame. Even in the worst case scenario where it's 4 months, that means it's 6 months overall that we've had with that gear, and 6 months I have to build this up. 6 months they have to give us events, more augment transfer passes, introduce a shop that may have, you know, the augment transfer vouchers into it. So it's one of those situations where I just don't need to rush into my next set of gear super, super quickly. You basically can just chill with what you have and you'll be perfectly fine. If anything else, the only thing I may, you know, move into fairly quickly is my weapon, and that's about it. Because at the end of the day, if the damage ends up being higher, if it has more base damage, if it has a better potential overall, it's going to be something that I really am going to want. My units, while they do help out, are not going to make a massive difference in what I currently have versus what I'll be going over to. Now, does that mean I won't be building my units up? have been collecting Ictasis armors, so I can go ahead and combine them. I may be waiting for them to do like a fix a bonus or like, you know, a bonus combination week or something along those lines before I jump over to them. But they are going to be very useful. They're going to be very powerful. And if I end up in a situation where I'm just not prepared for that unit setup, maybe, you know, these units last for a while and I just never really get around to them, I could always just roll this process over to the next unit setup. Keep in mind that I'm not missing out on a whole lot. Now, it could be a situation where they do offer some more potency in these units. There is a chance that they go with, you know, you have more utility, HP, PP. I mean, Dengeki did mention this in their article, but they never said there weren't other options available as well. This could be a situation where instead of more HP and PP, you get more potency and it's another 0.5, right? Like, and then we end up in another situation where it's a whole % between the previous and the current. So that is something to keep in mind. But I guess it's a long way of saying that I'm not jumping to my new units immediately. I don't need to. I'm in a position where it's absolutely necessary, at least for the gearing process, outside of just, you know, flexing, right? I do want to flex. It's fun to have the best gear you possibly can, but it's also important to make sure you're doing it in a way that you're not screwing yourself over for a later gear progression. If I rush into this and I use all my resources and then, you know, the next time this comes around, I'm just not prepared again, and I'm constantly on the back foot, it's gonna be a situation where I'm barely able to keep up, and I definitely don't want that to happen. I foresee myself being in a situation where, worst case scenario, I'm at 1 unit and 1 weapon. Best case scenario, there's more options. I have all 4 of them moved over. I just want to make sure that if, you know, we're making a decision to transfer our information or transfer our stuff over, we're doing it in a way that it's going to be most beneficial. Now, there's an argument to be made for the transfer of these augments in general, right? Like, you could argue that just getting another capsule, Gland Gigas Master, Lux Al Finale, another capsule, Lux Al Finale, a Grand Gladius Soul, and then putting on a Grand Dread Keeper 2, because technically that is going to be better in our current setup with attack fixa. It's better to go that route and then, you know, transfer over the EX augments than it is to transfer everything over. However, we take a look at our current units. These are all the same high dollar augments. Like, this is expensive. That's what you want to transfer over. This is what you care about. I mean, in the units, it's 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 6 really? I think it's 6 actually. Yeah, the units, there's an argument to be made for you care more about your unit transfer than your weapon transfer, and it's more important to transfer units because it's going to be more beneficial for you as far as cost is concerned. And that's absolutely correct. The only augments that aren't worth a ton are literally Mega Trial and Melra Doable. Everything else is going to be over the millions, in some cases in the 4 millions bracket when it comes to augments. So it's totally understandable to prioritize units in that situation over weapons, and that's probably something that will happen for a lot of people. It's just the power that I'm gaining from going between those units just isn't going to be worth for me. So I'm going to do a slow roll on the units. We'll see what comes up, and we'll take advantage of every single possible freebie that we can. And hopefully by the time that we're looking at moving into the new set of units, the Ictasis armor, the 10 stars, either we will have a good idea of what we'll be going into, or we will we'll have more access to more of those glorious transfer passes. Anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. Not a super long video. I wanted to let you guys know what my plans were, my reasoning behind it, and kind of what my thought process was going. As always, I've yapped on way longer than I needed to, and I appreciate you guys if you stuck around all the way to the end. Let me know what your gear plans are, if you're moving between your gear, or if you're looking at building up the new armor. Honestly, if you're someone who is not geared at all and you're in a situation where, you know, maybe you didn't really gear up the other stuff, it's actually very worth grabbing the new armor and just LCOGing the crap out of it and just sitting on it, man. Take all the freebie augments you possibly can and just sit with this armor, because the way they're building this up, it does seem like it's going to have quite a bit of longevity. And this is it's been a long time since I can say I highly recommend going ahead and upgrading your armor now, or upgrading your units now if you can, especially if you are someone who isn't really using the idea armors. Maybe you're someone who had a decent set of octos, or maybe you're someone who has been using octos using the freebie stuff. This new armor, the new weapon, it's looking like it's going to be a situation where we're going to be holding on to this gear for quite some time, and I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like if you enjoyed the video, sub if you want to keep up with more. Thanks again to the channel members. You guys are fantastic, and I will see you wonderful individuals next time. Take care, my friends. Peace out.